We have multiple major updates revolving around superstar Kevin Durant, as there's been a lot of discussion and talking revolving around the superstar, as the Suns' main goal of after hiring head coach Jordan Ott is to get through this deal and to figure out what is best for the Phoenix Suns. But with that being involved, multiple teams have been interested and multiple teams have been rising their prices, and asking price has gone up and down, fluctuating, to allow these debates to kind of go through and figure out what is going to be the team that Kevin Durant goes to and who is most likely to land him at this moment. Thoughts are just switching left and right, and ultimately we have a little bit of a concrete analyzation so far. So we're going to break down and look at it here today on Suns Digest. I am Bruce Veliz, and you guys been fantastic, showing your love and support. I do apologize for not getting you guys a video over the last couple of days. We did have our stream on Thursday, but there was no relative news really revolving around the team, and yesterday I was busy, not able to get on these discussions. But today we will be having them, breaking down and looking at all the news revolving around Kevin Durant. So without further ado, make sure to grab that snack, and ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it here, as we have some new updates, like I mentioned, revolving around this Kevin Durant trade dilemma with the Phoenix Suns. As like I mentioned from numerous sources, the Phoenix Suns now plan is to work on a deal with Rich Kleiman and Kevin Durant to find the best package not only for the Phoenix Suns but the best destination, for Kevin Durant as well. And we do know from Shams Charania from the updates over a couple of days that he has reported that the Suns and Kevin Durant's business partner Rich Kleiman are sorting through trade options with interest from teams with Houston, San Antonio, Minnesota, Miami, and New York. Now, obviously, there were some wild card teams mentioned as well in that reporting from Shams Charania. And then yesterday, we got some further reports as well from Shams letting us know that there were three teams mainly focused on a Kevin Durant trade: the Heat, Timberwolves, and Rockets, kind of seemingly eliminating the San Antonio Spurs and a little bit of the New York Knicks. And we'll get into why in just a little bit, why that may have happened for those teams in those fits. But with that being reported as well, going into yesterday's finals appearance and then going into today, we've had some more news relating around the team, as the Spurs were always said to be the number one landing spot, have now obviously fizzled out of the top three, it seems like, and potentially could be out of the race completely, as the Wolves are reportedly gaining steam as a potential landing spot for Kevin Durant per Zach Lowe, where he said on his podcast on The Ringer that he would put the Timberwolves as the number one in the buzz rankings in the Durant sweepstakes, with the Houston Rockets at number two. And then we had this from the Stein line today, coming from Mark Stein, letting us know that the Raptors are willing to gamble on a Kevin Durant trade, as there are teams out there saying, we know we're only under contract, he's only under contract for one more year, about $55 million, but we're willing to take that gamble on him, and Toronto is one of those teams. Shams mentioned some wild card teams in there. I preface that Toronto could be one of those. I do think there are some other wild card teams in there mentioned, which we'll get into just in a little bit. But the Raptors, seemingly with their Kawhi Leonard situation, are ready to go all in for this big old swing and trying to bring in a guy like Kevin Durant. But it does say from Jake Fisher just a couple minutes ago with the final update on his little Substack alongside Mark Stein, saying the Timberwolves and the Heat seem to be the most likely landing spots for Durant, as things can obviously be fluid at this stage, with the two teams most frequently cited as potential landing spots for Durant entering Saturday's business league, sources say, were Minnesota and Miami. Now, we do know with the Phoenix Suns, right, when trying to do this type of move for Kevin Durant, they're trying to get the best offer out there on the open market, and that's why they're even considering teams like Toronto or potentially some of these wild card teams that Shams Charania has mentioned in these last couple of days. But let's break it down and let's look at all the reports kind of going over it. Like I mentioned, 5 names that were mentioned here were brought up. Then we saw Shams kind of nick these down, and it makes sense why these kind of teams were nicked down. If we want to look at who they were involved, it was the Spurs and the New York Knicks. With the Knicks, it seems very difficult, as we heard from John Gambadoro that a swap for Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't make the most sense for the Suns, and they're not interested in that. And it doesn't make sense for the New York Knicks to once again trade Mikal Bridges, who they just traded 5 first-round picks for. And for the Suns, doesn't make sense to trade back for Mikal Bridges, just going into the league that trade was a failure. But also, I do believe that OG Anunoby will be off the table in a trade for Kevin Durant from the New York Knicks. Now, maybe that isn't the case. Maybe they do kind of strike in with that. But from all kind of inklings pointing towards that, that's where I think New York kind of fizzles out. And then looking at San Antonio, we know that we mentioned them as a preferred destination over these last couple of weeks and kind of days looking at this. And we've looked at some trade packages revolving around San Antonio, as it seems to be one of Kevin Durant's preferred destinations. But it is to be said that with San Antonio being involved in this mix, the likelihood of them including the number 14th overall pick has been not really there. And for the Phoenix Suns, they've gotten better offers on the table from those other teams. And, Miami, Minnesota, and Houston that are better than not including the 14th pick. Therefore, the Suns are kind of saying to the Spurs, hey, if we want to include the 14th pick, we can get back into these discussions, but we're not realistically going to be exploring them now because we have better options on the table, and I don't fault the Suns for doing that. It gives some, puts the gas pedal on San Antonio to really kind of gauge if they want to go all in for this move, if they'd rather wait for another superstar, because once again, they have so many first-round picks, they have tradable contracts, they don't need to make this move this off-season, kind of similar to the Houston Rockets, and that's where a team like the Timberwolves and Heat kind of get involved, as they're the really most desperate to make these moves. Obviously, the Timberwolves having these salary cap implications, running with their team, adding a star like Kevin Durant would, add some supplementary offense to that roster alongside Anthony Edwards. Specifically, also putting Anthony Edwards with his favorite NBA player in NBA history on the same team would be absolutely magical and a great story for the NBA. But not only just that, they would be a great fit on the court. And with the Timberwolves making the Western Conference Finals these last 2 seasons, it's clear as day that they can still win and prove to win with different lineups, switching out Karl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle, and I think that they could do the same thing by adding Kevin Durant to this mixture and into this roster as well alongside Anthony Davis. The Heat, as well as we know in the Eastern Conference, are looking to make a big-time splash move, and even though the Eastern Conference is weakened with obviously the Celtics being injured, I do not necessarily know if that Heat package is going to be enough around a roster, around Durant, Hero, and Bam to really put this team over the top, and that's where I think those conversations really strike with Durant. Ultimately, I do think he would prefer to go to the Timberwolves over the Miami Heat, but that's just my analyzations here. Now, when looking at these, sleeper teams, gamble teams that Mark Stein reported, like the Raptors, I don't think Kevin Durant's going to go there. Maybe they're involved as a third or a fourth team in this deal to send the Suns some contracts and to get some other pieces in return. But ultimately, I don't see Kevin Durant wanting to go to the Raptors. Maybe the Clippers, but I don't necessarily know if they have the right package. Atlanta can maybe make some sense, but I don't see them trading Trae Young for Kevin Durant, and I don't see the Suns finding an asset package that they are comfortable with taking back in for Durant to pair him up with Trae Young, and therefore I kind of close some of those wild card teams, and that leads me to believe that ultimately it will be done between one of these 5 teams: Houston, San Antonio, Minnesota, Miami, and New York. At the moment, obviously, the Timberwolves and the Heat seem to be the 2 picking up the steam, but I do believe that Brian Gregory and his front office will try to get the best package out there from one of these teams, one that they feel like they cannot refuse, and then simply offer that package to other teams, saying, hey, for example, right, say it's Minnesota. Minnesota's offering us this package. They call Miami, say, can you outbeat this package? They try to work with Miami. Miami can't outbeat it. They hang out with Miami. They're done with Miami. They call the next team. Call San Antonio. They try to wage with them once again. Maybe they call Houston, try to wage with them once again. Then maybe they do get a better package. They call Minnesota back, see if they can get a better deal out of Minnesota. I feel like Brian Gregory is going to take this on, and his front office is going to take this on for the next couple of days, especially leading up to the draft. Obviously, there's a lot of circulation, and head steam is picking up on the deal, and it very much well could be done by the end of today. Could be done by the end of this weekend. Could be done by Monday or Tuesday. Or it could realistically be done on June 25th in 11 days when the NBA draft does strike. So that's the big question revolving around Kevin Durant at this moment. Like I said, some updates with the Timberwolves and the Heat and the Rockets kind of being those 3 teams really in there. The Knicks and Spurs kind of fizzling out with not them having the best packages. But ultimately, we'll see where Kevin Durant does end up landing, and ultimately decide, was it a good package in return for the Suns? Could they have gotten better? Could they have gotten worse? What else was on the table? All of that news will be brought out as well following the Durant situation. So there'll be a lot of news to break down. And then after that, we have some more stuff to dive into. Could Grayson Allen, could Royce O'Neal be potentially traded? Could some other players on the roster be moved as well? Lots of discussions revolving around this Suns team this time of year, and it's definitely going to be interesting. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Hit the like and subscribe button to stay up to date on everything revolving around the Suns here on Suns Digest, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and go Phoenix Suns. Peace out, everyone.